In this video, I imported some different footage because of the nature of what we're going to do here. I think it'll be a little more interesting and a little more fun. Plus, this video is going to be a little bit longer, maybe like 20 minutes is what I'm sort of shooting for. And so I'm sort of hoping that by changing the video footage away from my dog, we can actually create some content that is fun to look at and make something a little more interesting as we go through these transitions. So that's one of the things we're going to look at is video transitions. We're going to talk about how to, sort of move from one clip to another. We're going to look at some effects and editing from adjustments on this panel. And then when we do the transitions, it'll be sort of an introduction to the effects panel and how these things all sort of work together. Okay. So this is the video that we're going to sort of start with here. This is some cloud footage that I have. Okay. And this is some footage that I recorded previously. And so you'll notice that it's got this like sort of widescreen format going on here. And we're going to have to deal with that in a little bit. I think this is a fun clip to sort of create some differences in terms of transition and blending clips and adding a color matte too. So we're going to add a little intro here. The first thing I want to do is in terms of editing is I can see that there's already sort of a cross dissolve on the intro to this, which is what this little slow fade into the clip looks like. And so it's a long cross dissolve. You can see that the full resolution doesn't really show up until like maybe 10, 15 seconds in. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead and cut that off because I don't need a cross dissolve in that color field, and I want to make my own. Okay. So what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to cut this up, and I am only going to make this like a 10-second video. So I've got plenty of footage here. It's about 30 seconds. So I'm just going to click, somewhere in here. Let's see. So it's still dark until about there. Okay. So we'll just play it safe and maybe push it up. So I'm going to go ahead and hit cut with this C for my razor tool here. Okay. And I don't need it to be precise in this case. It can just be kind of anywhere. And so what I'm going to do is go to V on my keyboard so I can get back my selection tool, delete that, and I'm going to pull this back to the 0 point. So now you can see that it's just an hard cut, start, stop footage. So what I want to do now is I want to show you how to create what's called a color matte, and then I'm going to show you how to make a cross dissolve video transition. So what I want to do is I want to create a transition from like a white or whitish blue intro scene, so it feels a little bit more intentional. When the video starts, it has like a slow sort of bleed into the start, kind of like that last cross dissolve did, but in a way that the colors are a little bit more matched instead of it just being black on black. So the way that you do this is you go to File, New, and you go to Color Matte. And so this is going to be particularly helpful when you're doing video pieces, and maybe less so when you're doing animations like GIFs. But at any rate, it's a good tool to know how to use, and a good effect to know how to use. And then it will teach you a bunch of other tools along the way that will be much more applicable to a wide variety of projects. So this will come up. It's going to default to this. In this case, this video footage matches this frame rate, and I already know that, so I'm going to hit OK. And then it brings up this little color field picker. Okay. I am going to try to pick something that's a little bit more on the spectrum of what the colors look like in here. I don't want it to be super blue. I just kind of want something kind of in the middle. So I'm just going to sort of pick a color right in here. Okay. I don't want pure white. It's a little stark and sterile. And I don't want blue. I don't want it to be super distracting. The footage is nice and slow and has like an easy feel to it, so I don't want it to be too obvious what I'm doing. So when I hit OK, I'm going to call this white blue. Okay, and when I hit OK on there, it's going to populate it here. And so now I've got it within the media browser location over here with all my other clips. and I can click and drag this clip into my track list, okay? And I can extend this and make it a little bit longer, okay? So right now it's, it'll tell you the duration. If you look below these numbers, it'll tell you how long it's pulling for. So we're at about 2 seconds there. And so now I've just got this footage. One of the things to keep in mind as you start to layer these tracks is the track that is on top of another one, just like in Photoshop, gets the visual priority. Okay, so you'll see as soon as it switches, it's going to pull out of there. Okay, so at about, 30 seconds, it goes through. Okay. It's a long transition, but for the purposes of this demo, it'll be a little bit easier to see. And then we can always shorten it down later. Okay. So one of the things you can do, if you want, is you can either, if you just want to cut it, right, we already talked about this, you can hit Command K here. The other thing you can do to match these up if you don't want to delete any information is you can click and pull this track over, and it will snap. And then you can pull it down and know that it's not overlapping anything. Now these two clips are side by side, and they will transition easily. My recommendation is to, in terms of workflow, is to try not to have too many tracks going up and up and up. I mean, on some of these projects, you're going to have a bunch, and you'll have 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 tracks. And it's nice because you can sort of work things around and you can see how they all operate. But it gets pretty confusing when you have 15 tracks and you can't tell which one is going where, and they're all muted and unmuted. So anytime you can, that these two are going to be attached and put them on the same track line, it simplifies things a little bit. Okay. So right now, this is a pretty hard cut. Okay. And so I want this to be a smoother transition. And so the way that you can do this is what's called a cross dissolve. Okay. And so over here in the effects panel, I'll open this up a little bit. This is what it looks like without any of them in a drop down. So what I want to do is I want to find video transitions and dissolve. Okay. And here is cross dissolve. And so this is a really important sort of operational intent of Premiere, is that the way that you apply these effects is you click and drag them onto the clip or clips that you want to apply that effect to. And so it's pretty analog, like it seems like, this is like something you would do in the 90s, but it's really nice because you can actually see where it's going, you have some control, and it's pretty direct, which I really appreciate. So I know I want to cross dissolve. I'm going to click and drag, and if you drag it over the two of them, you can see, I'm going to zoom in, that now there's this cross dissolve here. So I'm going to go ahead and show you what this looks like just as is. Okay, so now it's a much smoother transition between the two clips. The thing I don't love about this is that this background on this footage is black and this one is all whitish blue, light blue. And so what I want to do to teach you how to adjust some of the things over here now is I want to crop this video footage to match the aspect ratio of this wide angle video footage. Okay. Before I do that, if you ever need to adjust the time that this cross dissolve takes, like if you want a longer cross dissolve or a shorter cross dissolve, you can always just click on it and adjust the time here. So you can make it longer. So now it's 2 seconds, 4 seconds in this case. Okay, so it's a much slower cross dissolve. It's a little obnoxious when it's that long. So we'll go ahead and reduce it back down to, let's say, 2 seconds. Good number. Okay, and you can always click and type it in there instead of using the scrubber as well. Okay, so this is our cross dissolve. So what I'm going to do to sort of use this clip as the frame, so I'm not guessing, I can use this as sort of a guide. If I leave this playhead in the middle of the two clips, I can see both this footage and this footage, and then I can make my adjustments. Okay, so I'm going to make sure that I'm on the footage that I want to edit, not this other footage of the clouds. I'm on this color matte footage. And I'm going to go up here. And so this is where you can adjust the position, the scale, you can rotate it, you can adjust the opacity. Okay, I'm going to show you how to do these. So you can see as I move this left or right, it's moving the actual color matte, and I can undo. It does top and bottom. Okay, we'll do some more of this later. You can adjust the scale, so we can zoom it in like this. Just kind of cool looking. Let's see what it looks like. Right, that's pretty fun. I'm going to undo that. With this footage, you can also adjust the opacity, so we'll look at that more later. It won't be so obvious on this footage. Let me hop back into this so we can see our little frame. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply a video effect. Okay, if you go under video effects and go under transform, video effects, transform, click the drop down, and here's crop. So the default effects are just these. Anytime you want to add more effects, this is where they're housed, under video effects, and there's a whole bunch of them. And we'll explore a couple of these, but I want you to spend some time and just sort of see what you like, have some fun, see what it does. I will offer a little bit of caution with this. It gets, just like in Photoshop with the filters, it gets out of control really, really quickly. And what it does is it ends up pointing more to the fact that you applied a filter or some sort of effect, rather than helping the viewer or the audience focus on the video that you made. They're going to focus on the fact that there's something strange happening. Obviously, there's no hard and fast rule. There's a way to use any one of these tools effectively and responsibly. But go through, have some fun. There's no penalty for experimenting. But when you actually are making your work and talking about it and thinking about what it communicates, you know, I think a little bit of restraint goes a long way with these effects. And oftentimes when you push them to their limit, something cool happens. But it's sort of in that in-between place where you're not quite confident that you want to use something and it just sort of looks cool, I think is when it becomes gimmicky. And I think the definition of a gimmick is when the device works harder than the actual content, right? And so we're a little distracted by it. So let's get back to this. So I want to crop. I'm going to make sure I'm selected on the right clip here. And I'm going to click and drag this onto my clip that I want to crop. And so you'll notice as I did that, this option showed up. Okay, so it added it to my other effects. And so if I go from here, it's going to tell me that I can crop left, top, right, and bottom. So I know that I just want to crop the top and the bottom. So if you do this little slider, you can see it's going to start to pull in there. So I can use this as a guide. I'm going to crop this there. And then I'm going to go to the bottom. If in the interest of time, I'm not going to zoom in and make it really precise, just get it really close. So there's that. It's a little over. These should be the same. So I'll do 15 and 15. So now let's see what this looks like. So we're going to start at blue, white. And so now I've got this nice little transition without having to deal with the overlap between these edges, and it all just sort of seamlessly transitions between the two, which is very nice. Okay. So now what I want to do is I'm going to cut these clips down, just in sort of the interest of the demo. I don't need this to be a 30-second color matte intro, so I'm just going to go ahead and chop it here, and I'm going to hit V to delete it. And if you ever need to move multiple clips at a time, you can click and drag and it will select both of them. You can do the same thing with control click, and it will keep them linked together. So now I've got this intro. This should just be a few seconds long. Very nice. And I'm going to go through there. We'll just make it a 10-second clip. Okay, I'm going to chop it and delete that extra stuff. So now what I want to do is I want to show you a couple of other things that you can do with these types of clips. I am going to select both of these. Actually, I'm just going to do this, and I'm going to hit Command C, and I'm going to duplicate this up onto this other layer, or this other track, sorry. And so I'm going to uncheck this one, and I'm going to tell it I just want it to paste into this. Okay. So now I've got these two clips. They match each other. You're not going to be able to see them together because they are basic clones of themselves. Okay. So I am going to grab this and this one. And I am going to rotate this clip and just show you what happens here. Okay. Oops. Oops, I'm just going to use this one. Here's this. Okay. So when you rotate this clip around, I'm going to say, let's put it at 90. You can see that now this is a vertical clip, okay? And I'm going to match it up just on the top of this. I'm not going to do the cross dissolves. So we'll still have the intro to the cross dissolve, and then you'll see these things intersect with each other. So I'm going to go ahead and match this up like this. And so as you can see now, they interact with each other and sort of create this river of clouds, this intersection of clouds, okay? And so now there's still this pretty abrupt intro to this video. So if I go back into here and go to video transitions, I can add a cross dissolve to the front of this one. And let's see what that looks like now. Much smoother, much, sort of applicable to the feel of the video. Let's say I want to adjust this time so it matches the other one. So I'm going to hit 2 seconds on this. Oops. Okay, so now they should have about the same cross dissolve when they both show up. Let's say that I want to adjust the opacity on this top one so that it's not so apparent. I like that. It's a little bit like more dreamy looking, so I can adjust the opacity there. Much nicer. Okay. And then what I want you to do is I want you to sort of experiment with a few things. Let's hop into here. Let's go into video effects. I'm not going to do anything more with transform. Let's look at what happens under distort, twirl. Let's see what happens. My guess is it's going to be a little silly. So keep in mind when you put in that effect, you have this over here. Let's see what happens when we bump this twirl radius up and the angle up. We'll just sort of push it like this. And let's see what that looks like. So now we've got this sort of goofy footage. Now they're all very strange. I like it. I don't like that the one underneath is not the same. So I'm going to go ahead and apply a twirl to my other footage. I'm going to bump this up. I'm going to bump my angle up, and you can see what's happening. I want it this way or this way. I like it this way. Okay. So now it's bending this footage. Let's watch it start to stop. Okay, pretty strange. I like it though. We're at 10 seconds, so we're underneath that limit. It's not too bad. The next thing I want to show you how to do is just a little bit more additions with a different file type. So this over here, I put a GIF in here that I just copied and pasted from the internet. So if you ever need to appropriate one of these, it's really simple, and we'll go over this more in the actual tutorial for the assignment for the animation and the GIF. But I wanted to show you what you can do with different file types and as you need to, sort of adapt to these things. I think one of the best things about Premiere is it's pretty forgiving when you need to learn something or try something out. As long as you start to sort of understand the way that this application operates, it sort of plays to the favor of the brave. Okay, so I'm going to pull this in here, and you can notice it's very short. It's like 1/10 of a second long, this thing. Okay, but I like the way that it feels with this footage. And so what I want to show you is I'm going to make sure I click off of this and click to here, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste this GIF a bunch of times to sort of create an animation. So it's already got a little bit of animation to it when it's got this little highlight that moves across. And so what I want to do is I want to go here and I'm going to hit Command C, and I'm just going to hit Command V a bunch of times onto this track 3. So I'm going to do this. I'm just going to run it through the entire end of the video. And so now you can see it's actually animated across the top of it. I'm going to delete this one now because I don't need it. If you ever want to make this a little bit more efficient, you can select multiples at a time. You can hit Command C and Command V. So now I've got this whole thing going on. So let's watch this and see what happens. I'm just going to start it at the cross dissolve. So now we've got this buzzy little thing. I like that little gap. I kind of wish that it had more of them. So I'm just going to go in here and select each one of these and sort of delete it out of there to give it a more animated sort of vibe. So it looks like it's flickering. Okay. So let's go ahead and play that. So now it's got this like much more animated sort of Morse code-y thing going on, which is disrupting the sort of flow of these clouds. Okay, I'm going to delete these. Actually, I'm going to add a couple more on the out. So I'm going to hit Command V. I like it when it sort of ends with the little thing. It feels a little bit more ominous that way. And then I'm just going to go ahead and add a transition off the back of this to end the video, because I don't like how it just cuts off, just turns off. I'm going to go ahead and add that cross dissolve to the end of this one and the end of this one and see how that feels. Perfect. Okay. So now we've gone through, we're about at 22 minutes. Thanks for your patience. So what we went over just as a review in this video is we discussed different and various ways to adjust video lengths and editing. And we implemented them from the last video. We talked about how to make transitions and cross dissolves. We discussed the ability to rotate and flip footage. One of the things we didn't talk about as much is, but I can show you right now, is we can adjust the scale of this. So I'm going to pull this one down. Okay, so you can see when these are there. This scale we can adjust and sort of make it feel like it's floating in the middle now. So this is just the same as when we did the rotation. We're just in the position. We can just sort of move things around. Now it feels like it's in the middle and part of that. The position does the same thing. We can move it right or left. Okay, so we can pull this guy over here. We could duplicate it and make 3 or 4 of these, just like we did with the other, the GIF footage. Okay, we imported the GIF. We copied and pasted these to create sort of like a simulated animation that makes it feel a little bit more active. And that's pretty good for one video. That's a lot of stuff. So a lot of these tools can be used in regular sort of narrative, linear video projects, as well as in more experimental conceptual art projects and animations, as well as teaching us that we can use a variety of file formats in order to create a much more complex video project.